right. And on this short episode here, our goal is to go through the rites of war for the World Eaters. We're going to start, as we do for all of these, with a little bit of a refresher, just in case you didn't watch or go through our coverage on the Legion itself first, and then we'll get into the two rites of war they have. So, World Eaters, this is very, very simple. World Eaters are very single-minded. Their goal is to get into combat. Their goal is to assault you, and shooting anything else takes a back seat. From the main book, they really only had 2 units. Those units want to assault. They had 1 character. That character wants to be an assault. Even when you look at the legacies and exemplar units and all of that, it fits that very well. So why don't we start then? I said because that was very, very brief. Why don't we start first with Dan going over the Berserker Assault, and we can then refresh people in the units as units get called up.
Of course, of course. Funny enough, I don't think Berserker Assault even has any special units that it does, but...
It does.
All right, so let's do this. So the limitations. As always, we start with limitations first, so we don't get too excited. All units in a detachment using this rite of war must declare a charge in any of the controlling player's assault phases where there is at least 1 model from any enemy unit within 12 inches and line of sight of a unit selected as part of a detachment using this rite of war, and must always target the closest enemy unit if possible. This charge may not initiate a multiple combat. What? Pause.
So
yeah.
you must charge, and you cannot
you cannot initiate a multi.
Oh, you can't.
And you also can't send 2 into 1 either.
What? That's a weird.
It's a 1-for-1. That's a very weird restriction.
That's a very odd. I didn't even think that. I don't think Josh knows on. Any army that includes a detachment using this rite of war may not include an allied detachment. So, ladies and gentlemen, the good news here is: are you ready for this, Dave?
You can.
You can take a fortification.
So we're only saying that because the most recent thing that we just went over was the unaligned rites of war, where out of 9 of them, 1 allows a fortification. Of these special ones, multiple of them allow fortifications. It's just the unaligned don't. It's just so funny. It's your baby mechanical one.
Let's talk about the effect.
No, that was the one that allowed
Actually, I don't think. No, only one of them. Oh, no, you're talking about that. No, so I was going to say, I think you're about mechanical, but yeah, only one of ours actually allowed it. Yeah. So let's go to the effects. All units composed entirely of models with the Legion Astartes World Eater special rule in the detachment using this rite of war add +2 to the distance moved when running. That's a nice bonus right there. All units composed entirely of models with the Legion Astartes World Eaters rule also gain a bonus of +2 to all charge rolls made for them. Yikes. And on top of that, all units composed entirely of models with the Legion Astartes World Eater special rule in the detachment using this rite of war gain a bonus of +1 to their leadership when making pinning tests, so it's harder to pin them. Rampagers may be taken as troop choices using this detachment in the rite of war, and Legion Predator tanks may be taken as fast attack using this rite of war. So, you have faster runs with +2 inches. Now, you can't run in charge with this army, but you get a bonus of +2 to all charge rolls, meaning your tactical squads are now charging at a +3. Your assault squads are charging at a +4. Insanity. Absolute insanity. Now, you still have to charge the closest thing possible, but at least you get some choice because you can move around and figure out what you want to charge. I think an interesting thing about this rite of war, besides that, I know people are going to be like, oh, talk about the Rampagers. That's not actually what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about the Predators. Because Steve made a very good point in our last podcast about world leaders wanting to take something fast, right? Like something fast to kind of not flank, kind of funnel in like the enemy so you can kind of get them to you. And I know land speeders are super fast at everything, but I'm thinking Predators. Predators are pretty fast. You can arm them with some pretty damn good things to kind of toss firepower down the field. And now that they're fast attack, you can kind of double up on them, kind of take some for fast attack and heavy support. But yeah, this rite of war is not hard. It's you lose the ability to choose when to charge. You must charge the closest. It has to be in line of sight in 12 inches, so you could kind of finagle that. I know Maplewood Hobby, the place we played, has this. It's one of my favorite pieces of terrain, but I call it the block. It's just like a solid building.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
With 4 solid. You know the one I'm talking about, right, Dave? The one where your heavy bolters were on it? Yeah. I love that. So you could, if that's in the middle of the board, you can kind of finagle it.
Remember,
So
it's also
you don't have to
distance.
charge
If you're outside of
something.
12, you don't have to charge. Yeah, you can play up.
That is true. Yes, it is. Yes. But that being said, no, it's just a very simple-minded Rite of War. I mean, it works. I played against it now, jeez, 5 or 6 times, and it surprises me I still haven't gotten used to the fact that an assault marine squad can move 12 and then get +4 to a charge. It's just, is there anything, what's faster than a space marine, an assault squad? Are bikers faster?
Yeah.
Jet bikes are.
Jet bikes. Oh, so that's why he just recently bought 10 jet bikes.
Yeah.
I was like, why do you want jet bikes? He's like smiling ear to ear.
Don't worry about it, Dad.
The other ones are 14. So an
so they get
outrider bike
+5
is 14.
Then.
Jet bikes are 16.
Jesus. So they get +4. They get +5. They get +5 to their assault. Jesus. So, Dave, since you're the math wizard, you move 14. That's an outrider bike. No, jet bikes are 16. You move 16.
Yes, it is.
An average on 2d6 is 7, but you get to add +5 to that.
So 12.
So your average is
off
what,
of that,
12?
but you moved 14 before.
So
you're
also your
maximum of that then. If you, or no, 16 before, so 28.
So your average assault range.
Yes, yeah,
so your average assault range is 28.
Was going
That's average.
16 before, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about that minimum?
Honestly, that's the bigger thing, is how good their minimum is. You know, the average is nice, the maximum is nice, but it's what can you do minimally? Because minimum charge distance then you have on these guys is 7 inches. That is the same average of every other, of essentially most other units in the game. When you think about it like on a large scale basis.
And your base movement is high enough that even if they make a withdraw move,
yes,
you're probably still the minimum range. Like if you get within that, that 1 inch away, they can't get away. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh no, I have to charge the closest.
As troops is useful because it frees up an elite, because your red butchers are elites too. Again, I'm not really worried about the scoring, but this lets me take the kind of unit that I may want in my troop spot where I have extra slots. And so for heavy support, so you move your predators out of heavy support into fast, which limits potentially your number of bikes. Okay, so we can talk about whether or not you care about that. Do you think then probably just so you can take more transport type things? Because not everyone gets like a Proteus as a dedicated, or even like a Spartan. I'm only mentioning Proteus because at least they're cheaper, or even like a Spartan. So this way I can carry my big squads of assaulting guys. Because I don't know, unless they want maybe actually some vehicles for fire support, because that would actually really help you.
Fire support's always nice. You got to pop the enemy tank to get the juicy bits on the inside.
If you're taking this Rite of War, you're taking it because you get +2.
I'm not saying you're taking it because you want your predators.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But what's the purpose of the fast attack predator? It's to add the anti-tank firepower.
No one's saying you
to get
take
to
this because you want fast predators. We're saying, well, if you get that as well, what do you do with that part? Because the rest of it's very clear. Yeah, I think you take it so you can actually pop their vehicles, because that's what you're going to say.
You take some Spartans because they're going to drive up 6 inches, then you disembark 7 inches, and then you charge with the +2. So minimum 4. So that's a minimum of, what is that, 17?
And multiple blast cannons to pop whatever it is that might be in the way.
Drive 6, disembark 7. Yeah. So that's when you need the heavy slots for the Spartans and Land Raiders.
Yeah.
And maybe a Kratos, if you really like the Kratos, but fast predators will probably do the job. Well, fast slot predators, they don't gain fast.
I mean, again, a very nice, straightforward, and exceedingly strong for them. Better than probably any of the others, even out of the unaligned, mostly, because this plays in perfectly what they have. So let's see what the Crimson Path does. Go ahead.
Armored Breakthrough, I feel, would be similar, just because it gets you the Land Raider transports for everything. Because that makes you very reliable delivery, whereas this is, you're going to get there faster. I say they're roughly equal footed. But yeah, the Crimson Path. So, limitations on the Crimson Path. If your detachment has this Rite of War, you must have more units that are entirely infantry than units that are not entirely infantry. The reason it's the entirely clause, you have units such as the rapier quad mortars or carriers that are a mix of artillery and infantry, or the mortificator that's a mix of infantry and dreadnought. This is basically at least half your list must be infantry type units. Okay, world eaters like to do big infantry blobs, so that should be fine. And then next up, you only get a single heavy support choice.
Yeah.
That one kind of hurts because some of your better delivery options are heavy supports. Lots of your better support is heavy support. But let's see what those effects are. Any unit that is entirely infantry and world eaters can ignore the first wound inflicted on the unit in each phase.
Sorry, I can hear that.
No saved or damage mitigation rolls are made for the wound. It's simply discarded. And no other special rules may be triggered because of it. Oh no, a las cannon, I don't care.
Yeah, can't beat pin.
Plasma, I don't care.
You did.
And as the owning player, and as the owning player, when you're hit by multiple attacks from a single unit, you pick the order of the allocation. So, okay, it's a veteran squad shooting me. It's got 1 melted gun and like 4 bolters. That melted gun is going to vanish. It's a very strong rule.
That is exceptionally.
But a careful opponent could easily negate it by just throwing something cheap first, just to play off that.
One moment there, because.
But still,
I don't think the allocation by the word it's written in the book, the allocation doesn't go that way. Because shooting phase is okay. Nominate to shoot, choose target, all that kind of stuff. Roll hit, roll a wound. Later, select another weapon.
Right. But you do not. It's not inflicted until you
step 6.
actually
allocate
to the
wounds
part
and
where
remove
you
casualties.
allocate.
Step 7.
My understanding.
Select another weapon.
Yeah. Right. Yes. So, you attack me with 4 bolters and a melta gun. You do, 3 bolter wounds and a melt gun wound. I say, okay, this is what I've been wounded with. I will first take the melt gun wound.
That is absolutely the opposite of what the book
now
says.
I take saves against 3 bolters.
Okay.
No, because owning player allocates.
So step 6.
And chooses the order of allocation.
Any wounds caused by the firing unit must now be allocated one at a time to a model, chosen, so on and so forth. Okay, step 7. After resolving all shots from the currently selected weapon, if the firing unit is equipped with a differently named weapon that has yet to fire, select that weapon. And then they fire. Yeah, you actually, they do it the same way they do in Titanicus. Complete the weapon, now go to another weapon. Because it says, you take your saves. If anyone's reduced to 0, move them as a casualty, so on. All that step 6. Step 7 is select a new weapon.
Roll to hit, roll to wound, then allocate, then select. What?
And so this is where the issue comes in when you think of the reaction for shrouding or anything like that. Because shrouding says before you remove the casualty. But if I have multiple weapons, my step of removing the casualty is essentially after every weapon has gone. So if you would have hurt me on first.
Yeah, so Steve, what he's talking... no, because I was going to explain to Steve. I actually was going to talk to Steve about this on Saturday when I came to Toy Wiz, and I completely forgot to bring it up. And I actually wanted to bring it up as a podcast question as well, because I posed this question to you on Friday.
I thought the group in general solved this for you. Anyway.
Well, it was basically... Well, it's more of we all agree it's this way, but there's no written way to do it.
They haven't said. Their rules don't say.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to.
Steve, you know what we're talking about, by the way?
Remember, there's a lot of other people listening.
Yeah. So let me explain this. It takes 5 seconds. So the reason we're kind of bumming up about this World Eater Rites of War, when you do Shrouded, right? And let's say you have a sergeant in the squad with Artificier armor, right?
Right.
What you're supposed to do...
He fails the save, and then he lies down dead. And then you do the rest of the wounds.
Not the
and
way
then you do Shrouded saves, and he stands back up.
Yes. But some people, some people interpret it 2 ways. One way is he could only ever take the 1 wound, and then the rest of the squad takes it, and then Shrouded is after to see if he pops back up. Other people are interpreting it as, all right, I rolled a 1, now I'm going to make an immediate Shrouded save. He passes and stands back up. Now I'm going to put another save on him. Uh-oh.
And here's the other thing, Steve, because I heard you say it. And here's the inaccuracy you said. So, the reaction in the shooting phase. During the shooting phase, the active player may react when any enemy unit makes a shooting attack targeting a unit they control. Once the active player has resolved, so it's all the okay. So it is all to hit to rune rules and armor saves before damage mitigation and or casualties, which means it's after I've done it all. But after I did one, I'm supposed to remove the guys that die. But by this reaction, technically I don't remove them, but I know that dude's dead. But then I go through the rest. There's weird things with the way they wrote it. Since the fact they said remove casualties, then go to your next weapon, there's several spots where it just doesn't line up well. Because even in that reaction, okay, so these guys will die, but I can't remove them yet because they're technically not dead. So do I have to do the reaction then? Can I wait until you're done? You know, by the wording, it can kind of potentially be seen either way. They wrote it for, I guess, clarity, but then when they did other parts, they didn't write those in the same format. They said, oh, before you remove casualties, you remove casualties in step 6, but it's all the to hit and wound, which is long after step 6. So, yeah. So for all intents and purposes, in my mind, when you play right now, yeah, I play it the same sort of way. I just, but here's the first time I think it's truly mattered. Because in this Rite of War, technically I'm picking the gun to go first. So like I could fire my bolters first and my plasma last, and you don't get to choose to ignore it that way off of the way GW has written it. I think for again, and I think I understand part of why. Part of why is also for range. If I fire my bolters first and I kill, say, 2 dudes, and now you're no longer in range for my plasma gun, I don't technically get to fire it because I'm now out of range. Because I did fire it later after you removed casualties. I think they did it that way in some spots and it makes sense. In other spots, with the way they wrote certain things, it feels, not that it doesn't work, but it feels very opposite of what someone may think. And this is one of the spots where I think it feels a bit opposite of what people may think. But that is actually how it's written.
No, that's interesting. I started with the Shrouded, and I didn't realize the rest
on your
of it.
Shrouded thing. I mean, I can see it either way, but like, think about it. We don't roll anything else like that. If your guy, has an okay, I know, like, or if your guy has a feel no pain, let's say, so he failed his armor but made his feel no pain, he's not allowed to try again. Well, we know he's allowed to try again. That makes sense. He didn't die. Shrouded's the same way. I took my save, I failed it, I made my Shrouded. I'm still alive. Why wouldn't I be allowed to try again? We don't make that distinction for other mitigations. Why would we make it for this one? I can see both sides, and I do think there needs to be an FAQ that specifies it better, because I think if you go off a precedent, I don't see why a guy in the 2-up wouldn't be able to try again. Because we wouldn't stop you for feel no pain. Why are we going to stop you now? Yeah.
I mean, feel no pain is the same language, though. So I feel, because it happens at the end of the sequence, once you don't... So the way it works with the wound pools, though, is once you kill the model, you stop allocating wounds to that model and move to the next model, right? Then at the end of all that, then you negate wounds suffered with feel no pains and shrouded rolls. So you say, I picture it and run it as the old school Necron, it will not die. Where you kill the model, it lays down, and then you roll and it stands back up.
Is that the way that spot. Feel no pain is worded? Feel no pain says if you make it, you don't die.
It's worded exactly the same.
Oh, yes.
No, feel no pain says you count as saving that wound.
Yeah, so I didn't take it. So I didn't fall down.
Right, you saved it. You count as saving the wound. It's the same exact wound way that it works for Shrouded. You count as saving the wound. It's the exact same language, just different places where you can or can't use it. Feel no pain does not work on instant death. Shrouded does not work on close combat or ignores cover.
This is moving away from the main thing, but I will put it this way. For this Rite of War, by rules as written. No, if they throw their bolters at you first and you take a wound from bolters, you're negating that. You're not negating the next one that they do. By rules as they've written it so far, this might be FAQ'd at some point in the future. If it is, I will make sure I put a footnote in. Yep.
Huh.
You know what's so funny too? We talked about all these like the ignoring wound, we haven't even gotten to the coolest part, which is the rampagers get low.
Who cares?
Why laughing? Like,
there's still a lot of troops. That's fine.
Oh man.
Yeah. So the second bullet point, after all of that discussion,
the second one. Jesus.
Independent characters gain it will not die 5-up while outside their own deployment zone. So on a 5-up, you regrow a wound. You have that one special character from the Legacies PDF on page 86, Galan Surlak, who has Sacred Trust, so you could re-roll that roll for him because he also has Bitter Duty, so there's no other characters in the squad. It's cool. Regrowing wounds is cool. It's not the greatest thing. At least it's a 5 and not a 6, so you might actually get it sometimes. But yes, the last bullet point and the most exciting one: Rampager squads gain the line subtype, so now they're scoring.
Does a Warlord Contemptor get?
He's not an independent character.
He's not an independent character.
Okay.
No, he's character, not independent character.
Got it.
Crimson Path is still it still has some good uses. Turning some of the line is not bad because, like I said, you might need some scoring units, and this at least is a scoring unit that if you can get it across the board, can go kill someone else's scoring unit to take their objective. So it actually could be useful like that. And negating a wound, even though you might not be able to choose which way it happens in the first part, being able to just stop a wound entirely is very, very good. And it does discourage people from firing large weapons that only get a few shots because one of them will always do nothing to you. The single heavy support might be too big of a limitation to me, though.
It's harsh, but at least you get to control your models. Berserker Assault, the force to charge something, but also you can't initiate multiple combats, which means you can't multi-charge 2 units. We also can't dual charge a unit. The fact you can't dual charge is rough. Whatever you charge in has to single-handedly handle it. And World Leaders could absolutely pull that off.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's be honest.
But the dice might say no, so that your unit that on average wins the combat might just not be enough to put something down. And you cannot support that unit. You can't join them later. They're just there, one-on-one.
And keep in
if you're
mind,
losing that combat, you're stuck losing that combat.
Legions and armies or builds that do close combat well. It's not that, Worlders are the only one. So, like, my one unit gets in there, I'll always win. Like, yeah, if you're going against TAC Marines. But you might have a strong, opponent that you're going against. Say, especially in that one. We talk about Contemptors and all being a problem. If I'm charging, say, a Dreadnought, there's a chance I might want more than a unit, depending on what's going in. Especially knowing that they're going to be forced to charge. Maybe your opponent plays a little more cagey and puts them in a position where I'm going to make sure I can take the charge from your unit that's going to have to come at me because I'm going to be the closest that can't deal with it. Now you're stuck in. Now you don't have a choice anymore.
Or they charge you. Yeah. You can't
if I get a charge on
you, you're dead.
I will make sure I go to spots that either advantageous or will tarp hit you.
Let's see. Or one really ridiculous situation. An enemy squad charges one of your immobilized tanks. You can't charge that squad.
Do you get
because it's locked in combat with the
Usually you can't actually be technically locked in combat.
Yeah, if you're base to base, you're in combat. And if you then charge that squad, that would make it a multiple combat, which is not allowed due to right of war. So
it is good. Yeah. Berserker Assault.
That limitation's rough.
It sounds very good and strong, but if you don't play it carefully, or if your opponent plays cagey, you could get into a lot of trouble because you could be put into spots that you don't want to, or be made to go into something where you might not be winning, or maybe you'll win, but if it's going to take you long enough, I can shoot down the rest of it. So I don't care if it takes you so long to get through it, kind of thing. So I think it's I don't know. It is quite good though. Crimson Path is interesting. Both of those are pretty interesting. So if maybe in terms of closing thoughts, do we see a different rite of war for these guys other than one of theirs? You said the Armored Assault.
I liked Armored Assault because it's similar to Berserker Assault, but instead of getting the bonus speed to reach combat, you're in a Land Raider. which gives you protection to reach combat. Now, that's not bad either. Oh no, you don't get +1 leadership for pinning. That's okay. You're inside a tank for 80% of the game. What you're losing out in that build is Rampagers as troops. But they're not scoring, so does it really have to be a troop? I don't know. I like armored assault, armored breakthrough, whatever they call it now. Armored something. Spearhead.
Spearhead was what it was called before. Armored spearhead. So combine those two tastes.
They took armored breakthrough,
Angel's Wrath,
armored
if
spearhead.
you have the right type of things. And actually, this is what someone pointed out on there, that they talk about the transport you have to take if you're an infantry that's not bulky and all of that. Essentially, or I should say, not that you're not bulky, infantry that doesn't have a jump pack on it, that some of the like Charybdis as well as the like Dreadclaw and all that, they would fit the bill. So you could actually take some of them. So Angel's Wrath might not be bad either, especially bringing a bunch of guys in jump packs and some good units without it. But I mean, out of the box though, out of starting, one of these two will actually fit you very, very well. And Berserker Assault's probably the tougher one to play.